Let me start by saying hello to everyone out there in the trader community. Doug here with Trade with Doug. And today we're going to be talking about whether or not this Tesla news about the recalls is enough to finally put the nail in the coffin and start selling off this stock that's up a tremendous 900%. Not only that, we're going to talk about whether or not this would be the news catalyst that could trickle down into other parts of the EV sector and start selling off these stocks that have enjoyed incredible runs over the last year, like NIO, or like FUV and several other in the EV sector. And not only that, we're going to take one step further. Should you not only sell Tesla here, but should you short it? That's right, I said should you short it. I know you think it's crazy, but just hear me out on this one. But before we get started, if you guys like this video, click that you like it, and also subscribe to the channel to keep updated on all the educational content here at Trade with Doug. Okay, my good friends, let me start by getting the record straight for the whole tone of this. I don't subscribe to either side of this Tesla argument. I'm not a perma bull who's oblivious to the fact that this thing is up umpteen 900% over the last year and expect that it's bulletproof and will continue this meteoric rise to 2,000, 3,000% and never experience a pullback in its life. I'm also not on the Tesla Q side of the camp where I think this thing is a scam and it's unprofitable joke and it's going to go to zero. I'm on neither side of that. I'm just a trader guy out there trying to make a buck, and when I see a great opportunity, I want to do whatever I can in my power to share that opportunity, but get involved in it, because there's only going to be a select few opportunities every year where there is a defining trade, maybe a once in a generation trade, a once in a year trade, something that could really change your trading and impact your entire year. And I think we're seeing that in, number one, Tesla, of course, but maybe in other parts of the EV sector. So first, let me just answer the question as to whether or not the recall hurts Tesla. No, nobody really cares. It's not like in the past Tesla hasn't caught on fire. Cars have caught on fire before. They've had downgraded safety ratings. Their cars have publicly injured people earlier on. It doesn't matter to this stock. There's other things that people should be concerned about besides some recalls. So some silly couple 100,000 recalls at best is not going to hurt this stock. What really will hurt this stock is the immense bubble that's been created across the board, where some of you could say it's Fed induced, where we're seeing all kinds of bubbles, not just in EV stocks. We're seeing it in the stock market itself. We're seeing it in things like Bitcoins and other stuff. Now, when I say bubbles, I'm not coming at this as a hater for bubbles. I actually love bubbles because they're profitable. But I've always said this when it comes to trading. It's okay to participate in bubbles. It's okay to buy stocks that you know are scams. But the most important thing that you should do as a trader is know your surroundings. And the thing that you have with Tesla is this oblivious nature of people not really understanding that it can go down, that at some point it will go down, right? Now, that's always the million-dollar question, as if and when and so on, but I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. So let's first take a look at the technical view with Tesla. And I don't care where you learned your technical analysis. If you picked up a book, Technical Analysis 101, and you read the first 2 pages, you would know Tesla's overbought. I mean, look at this thing. 900% last year. Now, I don't make many guarantees in the stock market, but I pretty much guarantee you're not going to get 900% this year. You can't expect even the best of the best stocks are not going to run forever. Now, I've been around for 23 years. I've seen all kinds of fads. I've seen all kinds of bubbles. I've seen all kinds of stocks go up. And everybody gets their time in the dirt where they go through a period of selling. Tesla will be no different. In fact, Tesla has corrected several times in the past. So on a technical analysis basis, we don't even need to have this argument. If you're making the argument that they're still technically sound, you don't know anything about technical analysis, or you're lying to yourself. I mean, come on, just admit it. The other part, let's look at the fundies. I don't even need to look at fundies because I'm not a fundy kind of guy. But something that trades at a 1700 PE with this? No. And that has nothing to do with Musk. I'm not saying that I disagree with Musk or that the future of this company isn't the future. But still, no matter what, even if they actually cured coronavirus by you sitting in the car, it's still not worth what it is. So Let's just get that out of the way. Does that mean that it can't go higher? No, that doesn't mean it, because it absolutely can, and it has been going higher. So here's the way I look at this. At some point, gravity will take over and this thing will sell off. Now, I don't subscribe to the side, like I said, of Tesla Q where I think it's going to zero. But a small 20, 30% correction is something that normally will happen to this stock. In fact, it did that back here just not too long ago in recent past. So to think that it won't happen again, sure. Now, if you're a long-term investor, please turn this off. This doesn't even matter to you. I'm talking about you short-term traders out there that are looking to make some serious money. So you've got to be thinking sometime here it's soon. Now, I've always been somebody who's been a believer in whole numbers, and I see something and I feel that, hey, it's probably going to go to, so when I see a stock it's 90, I think it's going to 100. In most cases it does. When it's a 190, it goes to 200. When it's 400, it goes to 500. And now that you're sitting up here, even though it's overbought as it is, I still think there's one more last run into 1,000. Now, when you get to 1,000, I think that's a good area to start a short. Now, depending on your bankroll and how you do this, I think the only effective way to do this is via the options market, where you can sort of do an all or nothing type of trade, where you could put together a fair amount of risk that you can tolerate, something that you could easily make back if you're wrong, but something that exposes you or gives you some exposure to any serious downside. Now, if there happens to be just the slightest market correction on top of that, it will only enhance that. Now, a lot of you might be asking the question, why even bother? It's been the most stubborn short. It's cooked people over and over again, and I get it. But what I'm looking at right here, based on options pricing, I'll have to go through this some other time with the strikes, but I figure you can risk somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000, maybe $2,000 for a potential $11,000 to $15,000 gain if this corrects. Now, I don't know about you, but my trading has always been risk versus reward. It's not always about winning and losing versus what you're exposing it to. Now, this brings me to another point that some of you might have heard. Now, some of you have seen the movie The Big Short. This was the greatest trade of all time from Michael Burry. And this was a guy that's well documented now that many of you probably already know, so I don't need to tell the story, but this is somebody who saw the financial crisis, who saw the real estate housing bubble and shorted it. And for a long time, he was mocked and he was made fun of because he was early to the trade, but ultimately became right and made over $100 million. He is now short Tesla. Now, does that mean that everything this guy touches turns to gold? No, it doesn't. But here's where this takes on a new realm. This is an individual that has experience with not just overpriced stocks, but the human emotion side of bubbles. And that's what I want to spend a second about talking to you. The human emotion side of bubbles, how the herd acts when it comes to bubbles. So if you watch that movie, a lot of it was focusing on how people were just so oblivious. And understand, I get it, guys. When the going's good, nobody wants it to end. And sometimes the red flags are flying in front of your face like they were through the crisis, before the crisis hit, that the red flags, hey, housing can't hold up this long. You can't just buy a house and flip it the next day for $25,000 and keep doing that forever. All those red flags were there. But when the times are so good and people are making money, they don't want to hear it. And I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news. I'm just saying this. If you're trying to invest in this company here, you're asking an awful lot. This is a terrible entry price for something that's up 900%. There are other places where you stand to gain more. And I think when you're talking about somebody like Michael Burry, that's the thing. This is somebody that understands the human element when it comes to bubbles. Now, I don't say I necessarily agree with 100% of that, but I do think Tesla is going to correct. In my mind, I want to short this, but I'd like to wait to 1,000. Now, that might not happen. I might not have the luxury of getting the perfect setup, and I may have to readjust that and do it here. I haven't quite figured that part out, but I will participate in this at some point because I do feel that the risk versus reward outweighs this. Now, that brings me to the other EV companies. In my mind, there are really only two when you're looking at investing, and that is Tesla and that is NIO. Now, I've often talked recently about a movie I saw called The China Hustle. This is my biggest not regret, but my biggest holdback when it comes to somebody like NIO is the fact that it's Chinese. Now, of course, you want to believe and you always want to think about it, but just real quickly, if you watch the China Hustle, if you haven't, you got to watch this. But a big part of the China Hustle is talking about that it's legal in China to cook your books. There's nothing they can do about it. So I know NIO just got out of NIO Day. They did the whole song and dance. We're selling all these cars. We're doing great. And I believe them. But hey, do I really believe them? I mean, look at Baba, right? Jack Ma disappearing, all kinds of hanky-panky shenanigans there. There's always a wild card when you're talking about Chinese. Now, I am long NIO myself. I first started a position in the 13s, recently sold in the 60s. When it pulled back, I bought some again. I'm using options this time just for the sheer fact that it is Chinese, because I think at some point over the next 6 to 7 months, it will go to $100. I think you're going to see that. So I'm bullish on this EV sector overall. However, I'm not so short-term bullish on this anymore. I think of all sectors, this is the one that needs a smack in the face. This is one that needs a reality check. This is one that needs a wash and rinse cycle to really draw it back. Now, I know a lot of people hate to hear that, especially if you're really, really long something like this. But I want you to understand things about making bigger money over a longer period of time. Corrections are healthy. Corrections allow you to repurchase assets at lower prices. Because at some point, here's what's going to happen with Tesla. It's mostly out of retail traders' hands now. They can only really trade options because the majority of people don't have account size large enough to trade it. They have to trade these other EVs, the smaller ones. So at some point, even the highest funds and the biggest biggest bulls, are going to get tired of paying high prices, and they're going to want Tesla to sell off so they can rebuy it. So just for that fact, it probably runs the risk of being downgraded. Again, the wash, rinse, repeat cycle needs to happen. You need a cleanse in these, and it will help you longer term to rebuy these assets at lower prices and then take advantage of the second or even the third wave of a secular bull market in these. Now, getting back to my point when I said I think there's only two, that's Tesla and NIO. I think everybody else right now, and I'm saying right now at this point in time based on my research, is just momentum wannabes. When I look at FUV or I look at Solo or I look at some of these other ones, okay, even Fisker came back. I'm not so sure they have staying power. I'm not saying they won't make money. Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is that they probably will not experience these 100%, 200% runs. They won't. That's something that's not going to continue. But that's okay. If it's something that you want to take advantage of, again, we're in this big bubble. It's even over to companies like Blink and other charging companies, Plug. They're getting the benefit from this. So we love bubbles. We want to be a part of them. But part of this talk also is not just to educate you on bubbles, but for you to understand it's okay to participate. Just know where you are. So to finish this video, here's what I want you to know. I feel Tesla could be the short of the year. I know I'm not the first person that said that. I'm not looking for this thing to crash, but I'm thinking a good 10, 20% pullback is in order here. I'm not as sold as Michael Burry saying 50%. That would be great. And I think even in that case, you have the opportunity to really make money. So if you can control your risk to a few $1,000s and in turn make 10, maybe 20, who knows, then it's definitely worth taking a shot. At least for me it is. I think you could find the same argument to be made in NIO. I think you could look at a smaller term short back down towards 50s, although I do think this one will go to 100 in the next 7 months. But I feel a correction is ordered first, the wash rinse cycle, before we go back up. So to answer the question again, the recall doesn't do nothing. Let's not be too stupid and think that Tesla's not a bubble, because it is. Okay. But we also know that bubbles can go a lot longer than we can remain solvent. So that's no question there. These bubbles and rallies could last a lot longer. Remember Michael Burry's big short? He was underwater for a long, long time before that paid off. It's not like they weren't talking about real estate crashes. The thing is, guys, is know where you are. For me, I really want to take a shot at shorting this. I'm not a long-term bear in it. In fact, I'd love to short it, bank on it, and then flip the position and go long again on the stock. I just need to see a lower price. So I think if you're trading these EVs, you're in about the 7th, 8th inning of this run. It's going to end soon. And unfortunately, when these things end, by the time you realize it, it's too late. So kind of remember that where you're trading. Learn a little bit more about bubbles and cycles of euphoria and how things work. What goes up must come down, and it will. Regardless of how bullish, how great, or whatever, there will be sellers, and at some time that will happen. So I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. If you have any questions, comments, you want to talk about other EV stocks, put them down below. If you have any topics you want me to talk about, stocks you want me to analyze, just send me over an email anytime, or also put them below. Until next time, guys, trade well.